this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight. So, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair. Here's the pillow. Here's Bill.
Hi there. This is Bill Lundgren, host of Blindsight, the program having to do with mental health and particularly having mental health as a blind person. I'm happy to welcome you, and I'm also happy to introduce my guest, who's actually going to be our producer, Jonathan Price. And Jonathan is with the Audio Information Network of Colorado, our sponsor and producer. Before we begin our program, which today is going to be on anger management, we have a couple announcements for everybody. So, Jonathan, welcome, and let us know what's going on in AIN.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me on. It's fun to get to chat with you every once in a while and talk and philosophize and, all those fun things. We do have some pretty cool stuff going on at AINC. The first up, we've got Diane Shore is going to be doing a concert in the dark event, and that's going to be hosted in collaboration with PBS, and it's going to be downtown at their entertainment venue downtown, and that'll be on May 4th. So you can get your tickets online. I'm not sure if we have the tickets up and running yet. It should be up by next week for sure, but that'll be a fantastic concert. So come out. Diane Shore will be there. Heart and Soul will also be there. They are, I think, a blind trio that does some really good music. So come check that out. And then we have, let
me stop you for a second. When you say downtown, you mean downtown Boulder or downtown Denver?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes. Downtown Denver, the PBS station. I don't remember the address off the top of my head, but more information you can find more information on our website, aincolorado.org. And then we have the White Cane Project, which is a project that we have started that gives white canes to those who may need them and don't really have access to them. And so we want to thank the Lions Club for helping us out with that and providing some of the funding for those white canes. I think we've sent out quite a few already. So thank you so much for that. Support. And then the last change, if you are a listener to multiple shows that AINC produces, we have Blindsight, which you're listening to now. We have Aftersight. We have Blind Level Tech, and we have a new show. It was Topic of the Month, but it's getting a rebrand called Navigating Life with Vision Loss. So if you're looking for Topic of the Month and you can't find it, just look under Navigating Life with Vision Loss. It'll still take you to the same link and same page, but just know that the name has been changed, and we just wanted to make it more accessible and more friendly for people to find. So that's it. All right, Bill.
Well, one more thing. We haven't talked about your technical program that you started, the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Blind Level Tech. So we just started that one a couple of weeks ago. I think we've got 5 episodes up, and myself and Evan Starnes, who's one of our technical gurus over at AINC, him and I talk about all things tech, from Apple Watches and phones and Mac computers versus PC computers and digital eyewear and, all this kind of accessible technology. So it's been a lot of fun doing that, and we're going to continue to do that for as long as we can. And so if you have any questions and you want some information about accessible technology, definitely check that show out, Blind Level Tech, or BLT as we like to call it. And you can find that on Spotify or Apple or on our website, aincolorado.org.
Great. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we're hoping that people will listen to this podcast, switch over to some of the others, and keep you busy, Jonathan. We don't want you not to have any work.
I don't know. I have I'm busier than a farmer during the fall.
Or a one-armed paper hanger.
Oh, I like that one. That's even better. Yeah. I'm only on my second cup of coffee. I don't have very many witty comebacks right now, so I apologize.
I'm one cup ahead of you. All right. Now, what we want to talk about today is anger management. And this is important not just as a mental health issue, but as a relationship issue as well. And so Jonathan was kind enough to say, okay, Bill, you talk about it. So, Jonathan, do you have any question you want me to start with? Because this subject is actually far broader than, the half hour or even an hour segment, but let's go for it.
Yeah, I think when we talk about anger, first and foremost, and I know you'll join me in telling people this, anger in and of itself is not a bad emotion. It's a emotion in and of itself that can be treated with either hostility or grace. And when I think about anger, I think about it as just being a thing, similar to a chair in the dining room, that it is just something that is there. And it's what you do with that anger that can cause either a lot of harm or it can be developed and harnessed and to be used for something good. So I want to put that stereotypical thought that a lot of people have about anger out of people's minds. Anger is just an emotion that we tend to have, and it's one of the core emotions that we have. What do you think about that?
I couldn't agree with you more, but I would add some additional material for that. I think one of the things we have to understand is that animals and humans survive because they're able to access what they call fight or flight responses. Now, that's just two options. And with humans, it certainly anger came to fit into the fight. And it also, because of that, it becomes a little cumbersome because that can't be the only alternative, fight or flight. We have to do nuances. And anger also, when I work with clients, well, Jonathan, you know people who are all intellect. They wouldn't have an emotion if they fell over it.
Right. Yes.
And then there are people who are all emotion and have very little logic associated with it. They're all over the place.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's the extreme that causes the problem. And what I like to teach clients who are the intellectual type to take a moment and reflect on four things. One, mad, glad, sad, scared. There's four emotions that kind of simplifies things because you have to choose one of those four, which makes a lot of people crazy when they're just limited to those four words. But that helps people see anger in as much and as valuable as the other three. And it's a valuable emotion because you need to be able to access anger when it's appropriate and to use it in a way that's not a hammer, but is kind of a scalpel to let people know how you feel and to help them to begin a dialogue that leads to understanding of what the anger is all about. And that's why we refer to it as anger management rather than anger elimination.
Right. And to go along with that, it's so important that we realize that anger is a primary emotion, just like we have primary colors like, red, blue, and yellow. When we have those four primary emotions, we have to understand that there are subsets, and anger is on a spectrum. You may say that you're angry, but you may be disillusioned when you dive down a little bit further. And we can talk more about how to dive down and figure that all that stuff out later. But when we talk about I'm going to say the nature of anger, we talk about going from not angry to all I was seeing was red. And you have those people that are just seeing red and it's all fuzzy and blurry and they can't see anything but the rage that they're feeling and they don't know how to express that.
It's an all or nothing. So, and that's the problem.
Yeah, right. And when you talk about the nature of anger, what does that mean? What is the nature of anger? Is it memories? Is it traumatic events? Is it being triggered? Is it personal problems? Where can we talk about, and where does the nature of anger fit at the beginning of this?
The nature of anger is all of the above. Anger has so many facets to it.
Right.
I want to, I'll tell you about a reminder that I had a long time ago. A friend of mine came over for dinner and I was cleaning up. We were in the kitchen and we were talking, I think, about family. And he made a comment and I snapped at him. And he said, he got in my face and said, "I'm not your mother." And he was absolutely right, because he came off. There was just this set of words. It triggered something in my brain, a memory. And I reacted to it just like, I was talking to my mother in a particularly tense situation. And this is what happened to us. We'll be in a situation and we get angry. All of a sudden we say, well, where did that come from? And it may be from family history. My background and training is a lot of family dynamics. And I find if you grew up in an angry household, that's the only mode that you knew.
Sure.
And if you were in a household that didn't express any emotion or didn't talk about being angry about something, then you're kind of handicapped from being able to let people know that, when you're angry.
You bring up the expression of anger. What is the most common expression of anger? Is there a common expression?
Well, I'm not sure what. Let me explain anger from the standpoint that if there's a trigger and you feel physiologically, you may feel something. You tense up, your heart starts racing. You physiologically feel it, or there's something. Sometimes your brain just shuts off and you're off and running.
Yep. And
that's what you need to pay attention to, because that's the cue. When you have that trigger, or when your body starts to react, or your fist clench, that's when you have to step back from the situation and take some time, take a deep, deep breath before you respond. Otherwise, you're just going strictly from emotion. And you notice I talk about think, which means logic and emotions have to work together. That's where we run into trouble. We have one or the other, but the two work together to help you modulate your anger, allow you to think about what you're doing, and then say, wait a minute, what am I angry about? What is it? Like in the case of my friend, is it a memory was triggered, or is this something that, let's say, a social justice issue where I have every right to express anger? And in fact, it's important for me to let the politicians and people know that there's a group of people who are very angry at a situation, and sometimes they only respond when they hear yelling. And so, okay, that's a tool. That's a tool. That's when it's appropriate. But when you're talking to your partner and you start yelling, your partner is going to shut down.
Yep.
And so that's overkill. And that's when we have to learn to look at anger as a continuum. You start very calmly. If you don't get any response, especially with kids, sometimes you don't want to yell at a kid, but some children don't hear.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, wait a minute. You talk calmly, you're ignored. And then you have to say, Jonathan, you're crossing the line. And then you say, whoops.
Yep. That's exactly right. It's interesting. People use such a variety, both consciously and unconsciously, different processes to deal with anger. I want to take a little bit of a step back. And Can you describe just an overarching process of the anger emotion from the time you get something that triggers you into an angry feeling to the end, and then we'll dive more into what some of those specific things look like.
Okay. Well, there's one theory in terms of we're talking about the fight or flight, which is a trigger. Something has triggered you. And then it is a brain process where the brain may say there's danger, and what happens to defend it is to raise the level. That is, your body tenses up, your body's ready to fight. Mm-hmm. And then it may come to a point where your brain turns off and you just, the growl and so forth. And then if the anger is expressed, or if you control it, there's that moment when the volume starts to go down, but you may end up at the end maybe depressed because you let this barrage out and you hurt the other person. And this is a good time to learn from what happened, but most people don't. They just get, they beat themselves up and they say, oh, I shouldn't have, and they don't get anything from it. The other person who was the object of the anger may have that anger, him or herself, and may retaliate. And so the thing goes back and forth up the ladder again, or they may walk away or whatever. But that's kind of the process. More and more anger is not controlled until you get control of it or ventilate it. Then, it comes down, but the injuries may have occurred.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's really three kind of approaches, which is one I heard was expressing the anger, suppressing the anger, and then kind of calming the anger. Is that accurate?
Well, it's expressing it's getting angry, and then maybe expressing it, or your brain, if your brain is still operating, be able to make a decision. Do I turn down the volume? Do I absorb it and don't express it and walk away? In which case, I've stored that anger and it's going to come out later. Or I express it in a positive way, or in a very negative, blasting way.
Right. Yes.
And then after that's happened, then comes that kind of reflection part, and maybe even the depression part afterwards, depending on what you did.
You said something interesting about, when you express that anger, it's are you going to blow up, or are you going to be calm and logically reactive to it? And I think there's a very good word to put on that action, and it's just being assertive. I think there's a huge distinction between being angry and then being assertive, because for me, assertiveness is saying, look, you've done something that hurts me, And I understand, and I'm going to own that I'm angry in this situation, but I'm not going to lash out at you. Instead, I'm going to remove myself from the situation, give myself time to either cool down or come back where we can have a civilized discussion. But I'm going to advocate for myself. And at the same time, I'm advocating for you, because if I come at you just all, guns blazing and hellfire and all that kind of stuff, our relationship, regardless of who it's with, is going to be severely damaged, maybe to the point of irreparability.
But you see, the thing is, we have to train ourselves. We have to train ourselves to catch it right in the beginning, in that trigger stage, to say, what are my options here?
That's so hard
in the middle of it. Once you're in the middle of it, you've lost everything.
That is so incredibly difficult to do in a situation. I mean, because if you're in a therapy session, it may be a little bit easier because you know that you are going to be triggered at some point, because a therapist's job is to, peel back those onion layers and try to get you to focus on what you're doing. So it's a controlled environment. But when you're in life situations and you're at the office and your employee is being a jerk and they're just doing something stupid, or your coworker or your husband, your wife, your kids, your other family, anytime somebody is doing something that goes against what you are thinking or believing should be happening, that's when anger starts to set in. And then you have to step back and process.
Right.
The thing that I'm scared about is, and I'll let you take kind of over this part, when we have anger and we decide to suppress it and not react to it. There's a difference between suppressing it and not reacting to it. But when we suppress it, can you talk a little bit about the dangers of suppressing that anger?
Absolutely. There are two problems with that. Number one is it's going to come out some way. It might come out and hurt you physiologically if you keep suppressing all that anger, or it stores up in a closet, and all of a sudden the closet door falls off because all this stuff is banging against the door, and then you blow up 5 times greater than you would otherwise. And, or it comes out sideways. That is, you mentioned the supervisor. Suppose it's your boss that makes you angry, and you don't want to lose your job, so you suppress it.
Right.
But then when you get home, you yell at the dog or kick the dog, or get into road rage because of something that happened at the office. Then you see it's going somewhere else. And that's where paying attention to your body is so important, because when you feel that anger, you have to do something. I used to, when I worked out in a gym with a personal trainer, and I'd had a real tough session with a client or whatever, I come to the office, and my trainer could see it on my face and would quietly put another 40 pounds in the weights that I was lifting. I wouldn't even know it. I'd be getting it out by, because it produces so much extra energy that anger suppressed.
Yes, it does.
It produces so much anger that you have to be careful of it. But the other part is, some people are very, passive aggressive. They get back their anger in an indirect way. They may talk about you behind your back, or they may do something, very sneaky to get that anger out because they're afraid to express it. So,
and they're cynical. It's a cynicism.
Yeah, cynical, exactly. And so consequently, it's that sideways that gets us into trouble.
I love the idea of the passive aggressive person versus the overtly aggressive. There's covert and there's overt.
Right.
I think of anger as both of those things, where the overt angry person is just that brandish, scream and yell and kick and fight like a toddler in the grocery store. But then the covert anger is that passive aggressive, like, well, if you didn't do the dishes, then I'm going to withhold, love and affection later, that kind of thing, where it's a withholding, and that's, I think, one of the more dangerous types of anger, is because for me, the passive aggressive idea is a choice. And when
absolutely.
you choose to be passive aggressive and you choose to withhold something from somebody, boy, that will not only cause you a lot of stress because that person is going to, right, exactly. And, is there a way to get the passive aggressive person to express what they're really feeling? Or how does one do that, especially if you are with somebody or you're in some sort of dynamic where you have a angry person and you have a passive angry person,
right?
In those situations, how do you get them to come back to community with you or that person?
Well, let me take that passive aggressive another step, and that is something that Sigmund Freud said years ago, that depression is anger turned inward, which is not always true, but it happens a lot because sometimes a passive aggressive person or someone who isn't able to express their anger turns inward, and it can lead to depression. When if they were able to be more engaged, then it changes the depressive symptoms. Now, how do you change that? Ain't easy.
No.
Because it's a stylistic kind of thing. But that's where the other person has to, as they say in scripture, turn the other cheek and encourage people, the person. I have by saying I have a sense that you're angry about something, and I understand that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're feeling? In other words, engage that person and show that person that there's an environment where they can express their anger without devastating the room.
I'm going to add on to that really quickly. If you are the person who is getting somebody to express that anger or their feelings, and I know, Bill, you'll back me up on this, do not do anything. Don't solve the problem. Don't try to fix it. The best thing that you could possibly say, thank you for sharing your emotions. Thank you for sharing that.
Right.
And just let it be.
Just let it be. That's right. No, this is more than anything, when I work with couples, the wife in the situation is so frustrated with the husband who she expresses her feelings and the husband tries to fix it. And she said, I don't want to fix it. I want you just to hear me. And it tends to be, this is a generality, but in many cases, the other thing that I think is important for us to recognize is still true, that the one who explodes in a heterosexual coupleship, the one who explodes is generally the male. And the reason being that men are not allowed to cry, not allowed to show emotions that tend to be attributed to females. The only thing they have is violence, anger. And, so much of what we find with domestic violence perpetrators underneath is major depression, because they have these feelings that that's the only way they can get it out.
Speaking to that point, you have the I'm going to say quote unquote typical male, because most males have been conditioned to be suppressive of emotions, except for anger, and that you can either argue that that's nature or nurture, and we're not here to discuss that really, but it's why you see a lot more competitiveness in males. They're playing football, not saying that women aren't playing sports or anything, but you have more competitive juices flowing that allow for that anger to be harnessed in a good way sometimes.
In a good way,
where they're playing football and doing those, and the hunting and providing, and that it's that burst of testosterone and burst of adrenaline that gives way to anger, that if it's not harnessed correctly, can be shown and demonstrated in a very, very unhealthy way.
Well, the thing that you find in corporate settings, if a woman expresses anger
yes,
in the way that we're used to, they call her names. But if a male coworker expresses the same emotion, they just take it, that's normal.
Right.
And that kind of dichotomy that's created around expressing anger. And so women often have to use the passive aggressive or the less overt ways of expressing anger, because otherwise, they're going to be jumped on.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So that leads me to my next question. We've talked about the overt anger, the lashing out, the I see red anger side of it, the physical anger. But then we have also talked a little bit about the passive aggressive nature. What are some of the best ways to manage anger? What are some tips and tricks that we can use to kind of not mitigate the anger, but give credence to the anger and display it in a healthy way?
Well, I think it's a two-way street. One is the person we're talking to has to be receptive, and the person who's feeling that anger has to be able to take the risk to express it. And one of the things we haven't mentioned, I just want to throw in, as a blind person, if we suffer blindness due to trauma, there's a lot of anger to the situation that we're in, which we may take out on other people.
Right.
At the same time, there's also a vulnerability. We can't see if somebody's raising a fist to us. So we may be more reticent to be verbally angry or overtly angry, because we have to worry about safety and our vulnerability. But in answer to your question, what do? Well, number one, like my friend, he didn't get angry with me. He just, in a very sharp tone, said, "I'm not, identified what the problem was." But a large part is for us, in the beginning, when we're feeling our tension, we've got to be able to say, okay, what am I angry about? What's going on here? And step back. A lot of meditation, prayer, just taking a deep breath from the belly. Take a deep breath, let it, take in as much air as possible and let it out very slowly. That sends signal to the brain to calm down and enables us to take a moment of reflection. Or we need to get out of the situation that we're in right now and say, look, but not just walk away, but say, look, I'm having a hard time thinking because I'm feeling angry. Can we postpone this for 20 minutes and let me kind of clear my mind so that we can have
process
process and we can complete this conversation in a way that won't be injurious to either one of us. And that's something when the person who we're with sees it, that person will see us tensing up. And if they can just say, wait a minute, can I get a sense of you being real angry? Can we talk about that for a moment? And in other words, just focus on the anger. What is the anger all about? And get understanding on both parts about what the angry, then that helps to calm things. Sometimes we may even we know that we're going to have a hot button issue. We may need to set some rules. And this is one of the things I teach couples, rules for discussion. And one of the things is give an escape clause, how you let the other know that you're going to having a hard time talking about this, so that as soon as the temperature goes up, They can stop and go do dishes or something like that, and then come back to the situation. Physical exercise.
And in couples,
yeah.
Oh, physical, yeah. In couples, real quick, and this is more relationally with not just couples, but it can be with anybody who you're in relationship with, coworker or whatever.
Right.
But it's also good to, when you're going to go into one of those heated arguments, or you're going to go into a difficult topic of discussion, to identify what your goal is first. So that way, if you say, okay, honey, for instance, if my wife and I are going to talk about a difficult situation with the kids, the ultimate goal is the best outcome for the kids, and the goal is the kid, not necessarily what he says or she says or I say or anything of that. But it's really identifying that goal and making sure that you're still on the same team to work toward an outcome, instead of saying, well, I'm right and you're wrong and that's it.
Right.
You know? And I don't want us to get into this situation where we're saying, okay, look, this is what's best for this situation, and I'm not going to listen to you. And now we're just both angry. I'm just angry, and yada yada yada.
But you see, one of the fun concepts for a couple, for any two people who are talking about difficult issues, is to when somebody, either one, starts to go off on a different tangent, we say that's different from our goal. We say, wait a minute, let's put that one on the parking lot.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to that after we finish this. But in other words, the concept of parking lot. And at the end of your discussion, when the thing is resolved, then you can go and say, hey, this is in the parking lot. Do we want to talk about it now? Do we want to wait later? But as you exactly say, here's the goal. Here's what we have to resolve. And as soon as, last week you did such and such. No, wait a minute. That's a parking lot issue. Let's prove that. And let's keep on what's going on right now.
Right.
So you have to, in other words, coming back to what I said originally, we've got to use our intellect as well as our emotion to tailor each together and come up with the kind of solution or resolve what it is that we need to resolve by using both instead of one or the other.
Yeah, you were getting ready to say something about physical activity. What kind of physical activity would be good for expressing anger? Is it good to go pound really heavy weights for a while, or are there some other techniques like yoga?
Well, whatever works for people, and maybe just taking a walk around the block, or doing dishes, or is a lot of men don't often realize that putting laundry in the washer is hard work. So
right, it is, yeah.
Anything that kind of discharges the important thing is you want to discharge the anger in some way or another, but you want to do it in a way that isn't harmful to yourself or others.
Right. And for me, I know for me personally, you brought up laundry. One of the best things that I can do to dispel anger or displace it or to process it is when I'm doing something with my hands, whether I'm actually folding laundry or I'm doing the dishes or I'm working with my hands in making knives or if I'm whatever.
What you're doing is, whether you're aware of it or not, your brain is processing what just went on while you're doing the activity of folding and hopefully coming up with a way to present or deal with the situation. Because the other part, which I haven't mentioned, isn't physical, but for intellectually to say, is this really important? Or, I'm getting all bent out of shape. What's going on here? To kind of take the intellect to kind of take apart what the feelings are, so that I can come back to it with more clarity.
Right, it's a pattern blocker.
That discharges the anger, because it's, I was making a mountain out of a molehill, which means I don't have to do that anymore. I can give that up. Or I say, I see this as having no resolution. And I don't like it, but I can accept that's where it is, and I'm going to let it go. You really say to yourself, I'm going to let it go.
It's interesting that it all tends to start with the question, why? Why am I angry?
Exactly. And it begins with us, because we can't really change the other person. We can, if the other person is angry, we can ask the person some questions to get them to elaborate what is, getting their goat.
Right.
But if they don't want to go there, we don't have much control. Then we have to take ourselves out of the situation. And in a future program, we're going to talk about forgiveness. And forgiveness is not forgetting, but it is a genuine thing that we have to do to deal with our anger towards someone else and say, okay, I forgive this person, or I don't have to get caught up in this turmoil. I don't have to give it that energy. And that's a conscious decision on our part when we're in a place to think about it, and not, some people think if I don't let people, get angry with people, they'll think I'm a patsy. And it's not that. It's how you express your anger.
Yes.
And how you try to reach a resolution that's successful. And going at it with hammer and knife is not going to get you anywhere. But if you say, I'm going to step back, I'm angry, and I've got to let people know I'm angry, and then be able to talk about what it is you're angry, why you're angry, what is it they're doing. But there's their time, just like they're doing in France right now, where there's all this riot in the street. That's an appropriate place to put anger.
Yeah.
To say social justice, to let people say, you can't do that to me because that really makes me angry. And if you want to be a friend of mine, we have to figure out a way to resolve this.
My last thought is there has to be a space for both parties. If you're in an angry situation, if you are the person who is angry, you have to be able to give yourself space for that anger. You have to hold space for that anger. Otherwise, if you can hold the anger out in front of you, if you picture like a little balloon, you say, okay, this anger represents something that is happening in my life, whether it be a trigger, whether it be a past event, whether it be a event that is happening right now that makes me angry. I have to be able to hold space for that anger. Also, the person who you may be in relationship with, you may not even be angry at that person, but the person who is with you in this angry episode, you also have to hold even more space for that anger, because when you start judging or you start critiquing or you start trying to fix
and that's the sideway anger.
That will either do one of two things. One, it will trigger that person to never come to you again with that anger, or it'll say, I'm not going to do this, and we're not going to engage in this anger, and it's not going to make them trust you because you're just trying to fix them. And so I've done this so many times where, as a guy, I just want to go in and fix things, and it's just an instinct. It's a natural thing to see a problem, and it takes so much effort and so much work for me to back up and say, okay, I'm going to hold space for your anger, and you get to say anything and everything you want, and the only thing that I can say is thank you for sharing that with me.
Right. There's also, don't forget, if you have anger problems, that's what a mental health counselor is there for, to help you work with that. The other piece is, if the other person can be open and supportive of you and understand that the anger is not who you are, but that this is the way you operate. And then when things calm down, to go back to not to what the issue was, but say, I noticed this happen. Is there something, not to fix it, but is there something that'd be helpful to you for me to do to help you relieve that and not reach the stormy part. In other words, to be a helper rather than a provoker. And that requires, when things calm down, to talk about the situation, not the situation that caused it, but in how the thing played out. And that was what happened with my friend. We talked about it, and I retrieved some memories for him. And he was also a therapist, and you don't have fights with the therapist friend,
right?
Because you have to process it all. But it worked.
Yep. Yeah, and he held space for you. And he held space for that anger and allowed you to process the way you needed to. And, we could talk about anger all day long, and we can talk about the psychology of anger. And there's so much that we can get into, because we didn't even talk about, where anger gets stored in the body, or the psychology of anger, or like any of that kind of stuff. And so I think it's important to also remember, and we'll dive into more of this in another show, but we talked briefly about the main cause of anger. Was it something that was triggered? But even more, going back when you are in a calm state of mind and saying, I wasn't really angry. I felt displaced. I felt unloved. I felt worried. I felt anxious. Getting back to those deeper layers.
Yeah, but you see, I disagree with what you're saying. Those are the kinds of things will generate anger in other people, and we have to recognize what's going on here. I don't feel heard, and to be able to say to the other person, "Look, I need to feel heard." And that part of, again, you ask about resolving. If we're able to identify what the issue is that we're having, then we can get to the bottom of the anger, and both parties can be watchful that, even say, wait a minute, I just heard myself say something that, may have caused you to feel like I'm not hearing you. And then the other person can breathe a sigh of relief in knowing that it's a safe place, because safety is really the major thing, fight or flight. We want people that we have a disagreement with to feel safe, to hear what we're saying, and to know that they're not being judged. We're having a discussion, and sometimes we have to even train ourselves before we begin. This is how I want us to operate. And, we'll screw up periodically, but as long as we're making a good effort, the other person will appreciate and can turn down the volume. And if the calm doesn't help, then you may have to turn up the volume a little bit. But, don't start from 0 and go to 150 miles an hour. You have to do a gradual kind of thing to see what level the other person hears us. Then result. Then we get it out of our system. They get it out of our system, and we move on from there.
Yeah, this isn't a Ferrari. This is a Buick LeSabre.
Yeah, and it's also, there may be some people that we just have to avoid too. That's the other piece. Every time I'm with so-and-so, we get into a political argument, we yell and scream at each other. I'm not going to go there anymore. Or we avoid the subject. We say, we agree that we're not going to talk politics in this house, or we're not going to talk about this, that, or the other. And families do it, and that's fine. That's a decision that they make. That's not for me to say it's wrong. It's, we say, okay, we make certain decisions that we can't seem to resolve things that make us angry.
Right.
So if we're going to have our friendship, we're going to agree that this is not what we do.
Right. I agree. Yep. It's all about that pattern inhibitor and being able to to have good communication with everybody and have healthy discussion. Healthy
discussion, absolutely. And being able to not get into personality or sarcasm or all the indirect ways that we can really sabotage what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So, Bill, what would you like to challenge people with this week? I know you like to give out assignments. What's our assignment this week?
Well, the assignment is for us we're going to get into discussions with people, or we're going to listen to a radio station and get all bent out of shape. Pay attention to our bodies when that happens.
Yes.
The first thing is for us to identify how we're feeling, and then we can operate with that. If we're angry about, for example, we're working through, we have some anger about being blind, then be careful that we don't express that anger shotgun fashion to everybody who's around us, and process, okay, what does it mean to me that I've lost my vision? And, how do I accommodate myself? How do I face the realities that this is true? And who do I need to help us engage in that process? And just it's what we call observing with the third eye. That is, we're observing ourselves, observing our bodies, listen to what we're saying to people, and to understand that this is a part of who we are, and is this the part that we want to have? Or do we need to change something so we don't go off like that?
Oh, I can't wait to do a show on the third eye and the higher level of conscious, man. That's going to be awesome.
Be fun to do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But it really is, it's important, I think, for us to be observant. And I don't do it all the time. I'm a therapist who believes in do as I say, not as I do.
That's like the old adage that a nurse is the worst patient.
Right. Exactly. It's a matter of just being more conscious of what we're doing and what we're feeling. Okay. You've just been listening to Blindsight, a product of the Audio Information Network of Colorado. I'm your host, Bill Lundgren, signing off with my guest and producer, Jonathan Price. Till next time.